Did you know that the Supernova were actually a last-minute creation that Oda threw in simply because he thought Sabaody was gonna be too boring? Yet now they become prominent characters in several different important plot lines. So in this video, we're gonna be talking about the inspirations behind the Supernova and what Oda's end goal for each of them is. Is Law a Marine? What's Bonney's secret? And will Eustass Kid actually do something? We're gonna be answering those questions, but as always, if you like videos like this, make sure you subscribe and join our King Pirates crew. If you have a good time watching this video, please drop a like for the YouTube algorithm, and also thank you Surfshark for sponsoring this video, but more on that later. Alright, but to start things off, let's talk about one of the most important supernovas, but also the most disappointing, and that is Eustass Kid. See, Kid is a very interesting character because right now he has a lot of doubters and haters, but he only has that because there's a lot of hype surrounding him. If there's no hype, you can't be disappointed. Like, no one is out here saying like, man, I really wish Caribou had more feats. Kid, on the other hand, has had that hype building up for him in the story from the moment he was introduced. When we were introduced to the Supernova on Sabaody, Kid actually had a higher bounty than Luffy, which was a pretty shocking reveal given how much damage Luffy had done up to that point. And ever since Sabaody, he's continued to have this portrayal of being Luffy's rival, but he just hasn't lived up to that portrayal. So the question is, what is Oda waiting for? Well, the first thing I think we have to establish is that Kid is definitely an important character, and he's not just gonna get tossed aside and forgotten. I say this with confidence not only because of the portrayal he's been given, but in the same interview Oda talked about the creation of the Supernova, he specifically pointed out Kid as important, so clearly he had a plan for Kid. So I don't think all this built up hype and portrayal around Kid is gonna lead to nothing, so the question really is, how's this going to end? And as of right now, I think there are two main beliefs on how Kid's story is gonna end, which is that he either lives up to the hype and becomes Luffy's rival, or he's gonna be a tragic story. We'll get back to the video in just one moment, because first I wanna let you guys know about Surfshark VPN. The Supernova are known for their notoriety, but that's not probably something you want, especially with how weird the internet could be. But with Surfshark VPN, you can browse the internet safely by encrypting the information between your device and the internet. Essentially, Surfshark changes your IP address with a new one which replaces your location, and the best part is you can choose wherever you want to go. Like by switching your location to a US location, you can get access to Crunchyroll's largest anime library, and you can do the same with other streaming apps in other countries like Netflix and Japan to get access to all the exclusives. Surfshark has over 3,200 servers in 65 countries, so there's no shortage of choices to choose from. And Surfshark also has you covered across multiple devices because you can use it as a mobile app, desktop app, or even a browser extension. And the best part is, Surfshark is currently giving away an incredible 83% off plus 3 free months if you use my promo code I'mDKing. Plus there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk in trying it out. So please help support the channel by downloading Surfshark using the link in the description, and be sure to use my promo code I'mDKing to get that amazing deal. And now back to the video. Let's first start with the possibility that he does live up to the hype and Oda is just waiting for the right moment. And right now I think the most popular theory on what Oda is waiting for is Shanks, because Kid and Shanks do have a history together. Not only did he lose an arm against Shanks, which is kinda out of character for Shanks. Like, I know at the end of the day Shanks is a pirate and he's not afraid to kill people, but overall he's a pretty chill guy, so you have to wonder what Kid did to lose his arm. And beyond losing his arm to Shanks, he also formed an alliance with other Supernova to try to take him down. And finally, there's the major connection that they both have red hair. Oh man, it feels so stupid doing that without music. But yeah, Kid and Shanks definitely have an established connection that will be explained, but as of right now, I don't think we have enough information to really make any theories out of. And I think right now, that's another big problem with Kid, is that he has a lot of mystery surrounding him and we don't know his story. See, on the surface level, Kid remains to be one of the last Supernova that is still holding on strongly to his dream of becoming the Pirate King. But while that's admirable, it's kinda disappointing when that's not backed up. But I think him getting W's is not the only way for his character to become more likable. I think what can equally make him much more interesting is giving us the why. Why did Kid become a pirate? Why is he such a brutal and ruthless guy? And why does he still hold on so strongly to his dream of becoming the Pirate King? I think those are important questions that need to be answered and will be answered, because even in his Viva card, we do get a tease of his reasoning for his actions. Not every character needs a backstory, but I think for Kid, it'll really reveal which direction his character goes. Maybe his backstory is is strongly tied to Shanks, and Oda is specifically waiting for Shanks to come in, and that's when Kid will get his shine. After all, Kid does still have that portrayal as Luffy's rival, and he does have the potential, not only being a Conqueror's Haki user, but also starting to show off his powers in the manga. But on the other hand, there is the possibility that Shanks is just a minor connection to Kid's story, and instead Kid might have a different story as a tragic tale of the rival that never was. Because maybe Kid is just a character Oda is using to show us how brutal the pirate world can be, where you can still lose even if you never give up. And this theory makes even more sense when you look at the inspiration behind Kid, William Captain Kidd, who is known as the unluckiest pirate in the world. You see, William Kidd is a pirate that is not known for notoriety, but instead for his failures and bad luck. Ultimately, he died without any great feats and his crew abandoning him, and he was executed not once but twice because the first time around the rope snapped and it didn't work. But after his death, his story was actually used as a warning against becoming a pirate. So with William Kidd being the inspiration behind Eustass Kid, you have to wonder whether or not Kid is gonna fall to a similar tragic story. So as of right now, I think these are the two paths that Kid's story can take. If I had to choose one, I will probably still pick option 1, but maybe that's just the optimist in me that still hopes that Kid lives up to the hype. Alright, but next up we have Killer, Kid's right-hand man and the only other non-Captain Supernova besides Zoro. And as far as Killer's path goes, I think he mostly aligns with Kid's story, but there's a third option in there. I think he can also follow in Kid's past and become a notorious pirate, or also end up in a tragic tale. But for him, I think there is the third option of him dying and Kid surviving and moving forward. Longtime watchers of this channel know that Killer dying was an agenda I was pushing for a long time, but with the way the story has progressed, it's not a theory that I'm as confident in anymore. But I think the reasons behind my belief in that theory still stand and could play a factor. And the first reason connects to the inspiration behind Killer's character, which is literally nobody. Oda said he was just being lazy. So that tells me maybe Oda didn't put as much thought into Killer's character, which is kind of bad, especially considering the rest of the Supernova were a last minute addition anyways. So in my opinion, Killer's role in this story is solely being used as a character to push Kid's story forward. And honestly, I think that's kind of what he's done in the story so far. First off, just his presence alone as the only other non-Captain Supernova kind of elevates our view of Kid. But beyond that, he's actually gotten a good amount of development in Wano. But while Killer was the main focus of that development, it did make me a lot more interested in Kid's story. Because through the Killer Kamazo storyline, we really got a good look in Kid and Killer's relationship and how close they are. And on top of that, there is still one more mystery that still has to be answered, which is what does Killer's face look like? Because even as Kamazo with his mask off, his face was still covered by bandages, meaning there's more to that story. And I think eventually we will get an answer to that mystery, and because of that, it will in turn make Kid more interesting because Killer is directly tied to Kid. In fact, Kid and Killer being childhood friends and creating the Kid Pirates together was another thing focused in the Viva card. So I think ultimately with Killer, he is the vehicle that will lead us into Kid's story. And one way that could happen is Killer's death, which would not only give us that story, but also just push Kid into the spotlight. But as I said earlier, I don't feel as strongly about that theory anymore, but I do still feel very strongly that that Killer and Kid backstory is going to be very important. But moving on to the next character, we have the most popular non-Straw Hat Supernova, and that is Trafalgar Law. Now, the future of Law's character is actually quite a mystery itself, and he has a lot of big theories surrounding him. And the first one we have to talk about is Law being a Marine serving under Sword. This is a theory by my guy Randy Choi, so I highly recommend you guys go check out his channel. He's done multiple videos on it. So I'm not going to go into deep detail in this video, but all you have to know is that Randy gives some really good evidence for his theory. Evidence from X-Drake and Law's interactions, to Corazon being a Marine, to the Rocky Port incident, and even minor details like Law's crew calling him captain. Like I said, if you want to see the full theory, go check out Randy Troy's channel, but overall I think he makes a very compelling case. Despite that though, I'm still not fully convinced, and that's mainly because of Law's actions in the story. Because at the end of the day, I think everything Law has done has been to serve his own motivations and goals. The best example of this is everything he did post time skip to get revenge on Doflamingo and take him down. But beyond that, I think his character has even more purpose beyond just revenge for Corazon, which is finding new meaning to this new life he was given. I think this was something that was really evident in that conversation he had with Sengoku, where after taking down Doflamingo, Law was kind of trying to find closure, and in the end, Sengoku pretty much told him that Corazon would have wanted him to just live his life and chase his own dreams. And I think that's exactly what Law is currently doing, and he's found a new goal. Now at this point, we will get into some minor manga spoilers, so if you don't want to get spoiled, jump to the next part. But in the manga now, we do know that Law's new goal is finding out what the Will of D is. And I think that makes perfect sense as Law's main goal, not only connecting to his backstory with Corazon and his family, family, but also it kind of aligns with his actions, like him saving Luffy at Marineford because he's also a member of the Will of D. And in the end, I think for Law, everything he does is aimed towards being beneficial to either his crew or his own goals. Another thing I think is important to point out is Oda's comments about Law in the same interview we've been talking about. And in the interview, he specifically said he was surprised by how many people liked Law. And those comments combined with the information of how the supernova were created really makes me wonder whether or not Oda had planned Law to be a bigger character. Because maybe he didn't have that big of a plan for Law's character, but after seeing how many people loved him and how he climbed the popularity polls, he decided to make him much more important and give him a lot more screen time. So because of all of that, I'm still not fully convinced that Law is a member of SWORD, but I do think at the end of the day, his big role will come against the world government one way or another. Either as a member of SWORD trying to take down the world government, or as a pirate trying to figure out more about the Will of D, and also kind of get revenge for his town of Flevens. And I think whenever that happens, that's when the immortality surgery will come into play. Now, as for whether or not Law will die, I'm just gonna save that for another video because that's a very long discussion. And then as far as his inspiration goes, Edward Lowe, the only main thing I found out about him was that he was kind of ruthless and he tortured people a lot. So honestly, I think the connection here might just be Law's powers being the Surgeon of Death. But with that said, let's move on to the rest of the supernova, who are much more minor characters, starting with Capone Bege. Now, Bege's inspiration comes from Al Capone, and this is probably another minor inspiration just for aesthetics. But as far as Capone goes, I definitely think he's a more minor supernova that Oda kind of just added in as fun characters and as rivals. You get to see some fun powers and fights out of them, but mostly they're kind of just there to add perspective. And for Capone, I think he's mostly served his role back in Whole Cake Island. He got to play an important minor role and show off his powers like Big Daddy. We also got to see a little bit of development, seeing the fatherly side of him. And honestly, the most interesting thing about Capone is probably how he got connected to the Chiffon and Lola storyline. And I think if there's any chance Capone returns in the story in the future, that would be the reason. Now, once again, here I'm technically gonna talk about some manga spoilers, but it's a cover story, so I'm not even sure when that's gonna be adapted in the anime. But if you really don't want to be spoiled at all, I guess you could skip to the next section. But anyways, the cover story I'm talking about is Capone Bege's cover story, in which we saw Lola and Chiffon reunite. Lola also ends up marrying into the family by marrying Gotti. And of course, the big reveal at the end was Pound still being alive and also reuniting with that family. Now, as far as Pound being alive, I still don't like that, but if we really want to reach and give him a purpose, there is a chance that Capone and Lola and Chiffon and Pound return to the story at some point. And I think the only way for them to do that is Elbaf, because Lola does have a connection to Prince Loki. It's a bit of a stretch, but I do think Prince Loki is going to be a major character in Elbaf, which I did break down in my Elbaf video. But yeah, that's really the only connection left Capone has for the plot. I think it would be kind of cool to see Lola and Nami reunite, and Lola and Big Mom's interaction if Big Mom goes to Elbaf. But there's also a strong chance that the Capone family just lives happily ever after, and Pound has no reason for being alive. With that said, let's move on to the next supernova, Jewelry Bonney, who definitely has a role to play in the future. Bonnie's kind of a unique case where she's not really even a pirate anymore, like her whole crew has been captured, and beyond that, her character is just loaded with mysteries. So to try to figure things out, the first thing I did was look at her inspiration, and Bonney, and she's actually a very interesting character. First off, she was disowned by her father, who did not approve of her husband, James Bonney, but the couple still got married anyway and eventually moved to a town that had a lot of pirates, and her husband was actually snitching on the pirates. Eventually though, Bonney actually fell in love with another pirate called John Rackman and became a pirate herself. So Anne Bonney had quite an interesting life, and I'm not sure how it really connects to Bonney, but I'm sure something in there Oda's drawing inspiration from. But as far as Jewelry Bonney goes, to be honest with you guys, I'm pretty lost at what her story could be. First off, we don't even know if her actual name is Bonney because she has this alter ego of being the Queen Dowager of the Sorbet Kingdom, Connie. Also, we know she has some sort of relationship with Kuma because she cares for him and went to Marijois to save him. He was also the former king of the Sorbet Kingdom, so there's a connection there. And on top of that, her Viva card reveals even more cryptic info, like her swearing revenge and having some past with the world government. So that's everything we have on Bonney, kind of just a mosh pit of just random mysterious information. And there's definitely a lot of theories surrounding her, but there's not one that I feel that strongly about. Some people think she could be Kuma's mother, wife, or daughter, and there's some sort of connection with the world government. There's also speculation that Bonney might be Big Mom's daughter because she has the same lipstick and her ship looks very similar. And even crazier theories like she might be Akainu's daughter. Shout out to my guy Silvers. So honestly, as of right now, there's way too many variables with Bonney to really figure out a theory. But whatever theory comes true, Bonney is definitely being used to add more lore and plot to the world government. And whenever that battle against the world government goes down, she's gonna be an important character. I'm realizing now this might be one of my longest videos that I've made in like months. But let's keep moving along with our next supernova, and that is Apu. And to be honest with you, this one's gonna be a pretty quick discussion. I don't really like the guy. I think he's a scumbag. And I think that's pretty much his role in the story, is to show a pirate that's like so two-faced and willing to do anything just to survive. I don't think he has any interesting backstory. Eventually he's gonna get bodied, and overall he's just not that important of a character, and you could tell that from his Viva card, which is literally one sentence. Even the guy he's based off of is not that famous, and I think Oda just liked that ponytail. So with that said, let's just move on to another person that's much more interesting, and that is X Drake. Now at this point, X Drake's story is pretty fleshed out. We saw his backstory, we know that he was a Marine, and we know now that he is in Sword. The only remaining question really is, what is his current mission? And while I don't have a good answer on what that mission is, I do think Sword is working against the world government. And this is where I'm gonna bring back Randy Choi's theory about Law being a Sword member, which as I said earlier, I don't completely believe in, but there is one part of the theory that I strongly believe in, which is Garp is the leader of Sword. I think that makes perfect sense given Garp's character and how he hates the Celestial Dragons. He also never became an admiral, so he doesn't directly have to serve under them. So I think him creating a sword as a way to internally take down the world government would make a lot of sense and would really add so much more to his character if we think back to all his actions during Marineford. So as far as Sword goes, that's my stance on them, and I think whatever X Drake's mission is to help that. As far as what that mission is, I don't specifically know, but I don't think it's something simple like just like keeping an eye on the Yonko, because when X Drake got caught, he did seem really desperate to carry out his mission. But yeah, ultimately I think X Drake is one of the more interesting supernova that gives us perspective of a Marine spy. As far as his future in the story, I do think he's gonna help take down the world government, and he's gonna be one of the people that lead the next generation of Marines. I do think given his strength, he has a good chance of being an admiral in the future, but at the very least he's gonna reach vice admiral because his inspiration was actually a vice admiral. But moving on to the next supernova is one that I'm personally really disappointed with, and that is Hawkins. Because honestly, I think Hawkins is one of the more interesting characters, being someone that only listens to his fortune-telling tarot cards. But so far in the story, he's really just been used as a device for foreshadowing and also another perspective of not being strong enough to overcome the Yonko. And I really feel like that was a missed opportunity because you could have made this character a lot more detailed and interesting. Once again, I think the question of why here is really interesting. Like, why did he become a pirate? Because he doesn't seem like he has any grand goals. Did he have something in his childhood that prompted him to become a pirate, or did he just follow tarot cards his whole life and like the tarot cards told him that being a pirate is his way to get rich? So I think there could have been ways to make his character more interesting, but at this point he's definitely completely given up and it's just a minor character. As far as his inspiration goes, I really couldn't find any connections because John Hawkins was in the Navy and he doesn't look like Hawkins, so honestly Oda might have just used the name. But moving on to the next supernova, we have Urouge, who is the man of mystery because we literally have not seen this man at all. He did get a little bit of hype after Whole Cake Island because we found out he defeated Snack, but as far as Urouge goes, I'm really interested in the role that he's gonna play in the story, because judging off his appearance, he's definitely from the Sky Islands, which is something we don't explore very often. But I think with all the information that we know about the Sky Islands, Urouge is definitely gonna provide us with a lot of lore. As far as his inspiration goes, his inspiration was a sultan, so maybe Urouge was like a ruler of his own Sky Island before. His Mad Monk epithet is also very interesting to me, not only hinting at like some sort of religious connection, but also like him being like mad, as in like he lost his mind. So I do think when Urouge is finally used in the story, he's gonna be a very interesting character. I just have no idea when he's actually gonna return to the story. Given that I think he's gonna be connected to lore, I guess against the world government would make sense, but most likely that's gonna be one of the last battles in the story, and I would like to see him a little earlier just to get to know him a little more. But I do think whenever he does show up, it's gonna be worth the wait. But moving on, we get to our last two supernova, Luffy and Zoro, and we already know the deal. That's the future Pirate King and World's Strongest Swordsman. Once again, thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Be sure to download it using the link in the description. And at this point, my voice is really tired, so I'm just gonna think of a number between 1 through 4. If you guess it wrong, you have to like, subscribe, and watch this video. The number I'm thinking of is 4, which is my favorite number.